In this presentation, we will record a journal entry related to encumbrances within Excel. The information is going to be on the left side. We're going to put that into the blue area on the right side. This is going to be for the general fund. We're going to put the journal entry into the general journal, posting that then to our worksheet, which kind of represents the general ledger type of posting. The worksheet having a beginning trial balance and ending trial balance. We're starting off with just zeros here in the beginning trial balance. The goal here is just to get an idea of these types of accounts, where they line up in terms of a chart of accounts, so we can see what these actually mean in terms of the posting of these types of transactions. And then we'll take a look at the subsidiary ledgers related to encumbrances and how to record that information as well. So we got the encumbrance information, we have the purchase order and contracts issued. We're going to break these contracts out by grouping, typically some of these groupings possibly being other types of funds. So we have the general government, we have the public safety, we got the public works, we got the health and welfare, and the miscellaneous information. So we're going to post this. Note, we're not posting the budgetary information here. If we had posted the budgetary information, we would be using those budgetary accounts, which are the estimated revenue, the appropriations, and the budgetary fund balance. In other words, this transaction we're doing here is not the budgetary transactions, but it's still a little bit odd, a little bit different than we would see in a for-profit type of organization. So what we have here is the purchase order and the contracts issued. Notice if we had the for-profit organization, when we issue the purchase order, we might issue a purchase order for something like inventory. And in that case, we haven't paid for the inventory, we haven't received the inventory. The purchase order is usually just an information type of document. So we would think that there would be no transaction on an accrual basis for the issuance of the purchase order. If work had been done on a normal type of accrual type of accounting, we would then credit at that point the liability and we would debit expenses, which you would think on a government accounting for the modified accrual would be something like debiting expenditures. What we're going to do here is a little bit different, however. We have expenditures, which is kind of like the related expense, but we're going to be recording instead to encumbrances. So we got this interim step that we're going to be doing for governmental accounting, recording first to the encumbrances, and then once we basically pay, generally, once we pay for these items, then we'll record them taking them out or reversing this transaction we'll do here and record what we would think of as more of a normal type of accrual type of transaction, which will be recorded to the expenditures. So this is going to be a kind of an interim step that we're going to have to be doing when we do the general fund and we're thinking about the modified accrual basis. So we're going to be debiting encumbrances, not expenditures, but they act in a similar fashion because we're doing this interim step that we will later reverse once we pay off these items. So we're going to debit encumbrances, we're going to copy, we're going to put that up top and paste 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to say that this is going to be equal to the 1664. And then we're going to credit. I'm going to represent credit with negative numbers. And then we're going to put that into the encumbrances outstanding, which you could think of as if it was a for-profit, like an equity type of account. And this net position type of account for the governmental accounting, you could think of it in that sense. So anything in the light blue is going to be, if it was a for-profit, something like an equity type of section, assets minus liabilities, in other words. So if we post this out, then what's going to happen is we're going to be down here in encumbrances. I'm going to say this equals to, we're going to debit the encumbrances, and then we're going to credit the encumbrances outstanding. Encumbrances outstanding. Now note that this isn't a budgetary account and it's not a revenue and expenditure. So if we were to group this information up, then if we were going to sum up this kind of temporary account information, the temporary accounts that we typically think of as accounts that we would close out at the end of the time period, what would be income statement type of accounts if we were in a for-profit organization, the budgetary accounts we're going to group up would be these two accounts. The revenue and expenditures are similar to revenue and expenses would be these two. The encumbrances is going to be basically kind of this holding type of account that we're going to have that we are then going to reverse. So once we actually make these payments, we'll have to reverse this journal entry and then record it where it's going to go in terms of the actual expense, which we're going to call expenditures. Okay, so then we're also going to break this out in the subsidiary information. So this subsidiary information is going to break out related to the encumbrances, related to the expenditures, and the appropriations. Now we're just going to record this just to show you where the encumbrances would be at this time. So we're going to say, all right, here's the encumbrances balance here. We're going to break that into detail with our subsidiary ledger, and we're just going to basically, in essence, take this detailed information from the general government. I'm going to copy it down to the categories that we have. So there's the general government. I'm going to copy that down. Then I'm going to make a total, and then we're just going to put this information into the encumbrances column. All we have now is, of course, the debits or the increases here. So I'm going to say this equals the breakout of the 930, and then I'm going to copy this down. So I'm going to say enter, and then I'm just going to copy this down, and then I'm going to sum this up for the total. So we're just breaking out the detail, and of course that sums up to the detail in our trial balance. And then if we were to take the difference, the balance is going to be the increase minus the decrease, or the debit minus the credit. And then we can copy that down. So obviously the total is going to be the same numbers at this time, and I'm going to sum this up. So that's going to be an intro to this journal entry to record the encumbrances. So we've looked at two sets of accounts up to this point that are kind of confusing for us. We had the budgetary accounts in a prior presentation, and then we have these encumbrances, which are the two kind of new accounts, which are going to muddy the waters a lot as we then think about the more normal type of accounts that we would think of that are related to for-profit, which would be the expenditures and the revenues, which we'll start to record as we pay off some of these accounts here.